Thank you for watching this Emergency Home Learning Summit session on sparking interest and curiosity with the Global Exchange. Thank you to the Learning Revolution for organizing this great summit. My name is Jennifer Russell, and I'm the Director of Training and Professional Development with IERN USA. I've worked in the field of global education and virtual exchange for about 9 years, and I'm excited to share some ideas with you today for how you can plan and organize a global conversation and connection by using video conferences. Okay, so in this talk, we'll review tips for finding global partners, global class partners that your class can connect with, how to prepare for a video conference with students from another part of the world, and activities for engaging in a short video conference cultural exchange. So these examples in this talk are going to draw from class experiences and projects with my organization, IERN. So IERN is the International Education and Resource Network. And by way of a quick introduction, IERN is a global K-12 network of teachers and students in about 120 countries around the world that use technology to collaborate online on global projects. And so many of the examples in this talk and the wisdom and shared experience are from educators in the network. So we'll get started with a couple considerations to have if you're preparing to connect with another classroom around the world for a video conference. So as you could imagine, there are many aspects of logistics to consider when connecting a group on a video conference, as I'm sure many of you have lived, even just connecting your class on a video conference. But these become incredibly important when you're connecting with multiple classes or even just two classes from two different locations. So some items that we'll look at is looking at how you build an agenda, identifying your host, really important considerations to have in mind with date and timing and duration of your video conference. And then, some other things to keep in mind for platform and breakout rooms. All of these logistics are parts of the planning and preparation. So we're going to take a quick look at some of the logistics for preparing to meet partners on a video conference. And most of this is very important to plan out way ahead in time and to do a practice with your partners before you do the real live connection with your classes. I really recommend using a World Clock Zone time zone converter for double checking your time. So even just timeanddate.com, you can put in multiple locations and just double check your time zones. I've made so many mistakes on time zones over the years, but when it comes time to connect your classes, you want to make sure you're all on time at the right time zone. In addition to double checking your times, make sure you're testing the tools and devices in advance, and preferably with your partner class. If you're able to connect with another teacher at the same time and do a dry run, practice run of your video conference connection before you involve students, that'll ensure a smoother connection for the time that you have allotted. And when it comes time for showtime, the day of, when you're connecting your classes, be sure to log in early and get set up and plan time for people to log in and get into the room. So having that early time in advance is very important. Okay, so in terms of activities preparation before your event, it's a helpful tip to review some of the video conference etiquette tips with your students in your class. I'm sure many of you have etiquette tips and norms already set, but things that might pop up for cross-cultural differences and language barriers, such as speaking slowly, looking the camera in the eye, and being aware of what's in your background before you connect and have the exchange. As a class, you can do some research and discuss the culture, the town and city, or the country of the global partners that you're going to connect with. And for a successful video conference connection between classes, doing some pre-work, some pre-activities and lessons related to your connection will help ensure you have a robust time for exchange. And also give your students time to prepare questions in advance that they might want to ask their partners, and to really think through before they connect for the first time what they're most curious about and what they'd like to ask. In terms of setting the agenda, no matter the focus of your exchange and activities, you can have the general set flow here, making sure you're logging in early and giving plenty of time for folks to get into the room and get started. So always have an icebreaker and welcome activity, and review the objectives and activities and how much time you're going to be spending at the start of the video conference. This helps everybody know what to expect for the exchange and to have a sense of the time. All right. As I mentioned before, for encouraging participation of everyone, the more you can help students prepare in advance, preparing their questions, preparing their activities, the more comfortable they'll be feel in speaking and connecting with the other class. At the onset, students can feel hesitant to share about themselves with a global classroom that they're connecting with. So the more you prepare, the easier that participation will be for the day of. And as much as you can, prepare a conclusion and conclude on time, and allow yourself a couple of minutes for wrap up, sharing reflections, and goodbyes before it's time for the class to close. So now we're going to take a look at a couple activities that you can do as part of a video conference connection. And I call these for the Cultural Exchange Conference. So these activities are coming from the IRON Network and global projects, and are sort of designed to help students share with one another, share about themselves and their identities, learn about their partners and their partner identities, and to really just get excited for the exchange. The first activity idea for your video conference exchange is from a project called the My Name Around the World project. And this is a great icebreaker introductory activity for just meeting new people. So if your students are meeting a partner classroom for the first time, this is a great introductory activity to start to get into the exchange and to share some introductions. So in the My Name activity, there is cultural sharing of information through our names, what they mean, and where they come from, and how our family gave them to us. So in advance, you want to get students thinking about some of these questions so they can participate in the activity. So, what does their name mean in their native language, or perhaps in other languages? If there's any fun story behind their name that they'd want to share, who gave them the name? Is it from another family member? Are there other famous people in their country that share that name? And also if they have any unofficial versions of their name, nicknames, or other names that they go by from their friends. So doing a preparation in advance to prepare to share about yourself through the story of your name. And of course, for your actual video conference, you can do breakout groups or around the room and have students share about themselves through the My Name activity. Another activity that works really well for a cultural exchange video conference comes from our IRON One Day in the Life project. And this is a storytelling for everyday life. So what you could try with your class in your video conference is first on the preparation end, preparing your one day in the life story. So how this works is you ask students to think about the day-to-day aspects of their life and what makes them unique, and to tell the story through 5 photos with captions. If you want to get extra creative, you can have them make short video clips, but I would keep them very short. The photo series can include aspects of their everyday life, such as their home and family, meals, what does breakfast, lunch, and dinner look like, or what does meal preparation look like, transportation, if they are traveling right now to and from school or around town, or even just walking and getting outside, anything related to transportation even from before COVID times, you can share it as part of the everyday life. Um, Another area and theme is around school. So what the school building, classroom, school mascots, anything that makes up the daily aspect of a school life. Leisure activities, where do they spend free time, sports, hobbies, something that's a main part of their time for spending free time, photo that represents that. And then, around town or their neighborhood, there's a market where they go to buy food, any sort of visuals that tell the life outside of the home in the community. So the preparation for this is getting some photos and thinking about what represents the day-to-day life, and preparing those in advance. Okay, and then for the day of, when you have your video conference with your partner, the interactions for the video conferences, you'd have students present out and share out their one day of life photo stories with one another, taking turns. You can do this in breakout or as a whole group. You can have your students come up with the one day in the life photo story as a team or as individuals. A lot of different variations here, but to do a bit of a share out and tell their story through 5 photos. Um, and then encouraging students to ask each other the follow-up questions in between, as they take turns presenting, and sharing their stories with one another. If you go for this type of activity for the cultural exchange, make sure you plan some time for debrief discussions at the end, even just reflecting on how the activity went, what did they like, what was fun, what they've learned about their partners or life in another community, any sort of parallels that they want to draw, things that they identified with from their everyday life, from what they learned about their partners. And then also, what are they still curious about? What would they love to learn next from their partners in the video conference? So perhaps a continued point of engagement. This is a really fun way to connect and share, learn about other cultures and just the unique things that come from the everyday life routines that we have. One more activity that I'll share for getting classes connected in a video conference is from the Local History Project. And so this is some preparation and storytelling around the places that make our communities and our culture unique. So when participating in a global exchange, many students are thinking of the sites and the stories, and they want to share about the sites in their hometown or country. So this is a project that engages that interest in place, in sharing local histories. So let's look at the preparation for this activity setup. And the preparation is that you have your students think about a local or national site or landmark that has a special meaning for them. And they can do some research, pull some photos, and put some information together about that local site. Some questions to consider for this preparation before you connect with the class is for that student or group of students, why they selected the landmark, how it's important to them, their community, or their country. Why was that landmark constructed, and what does it serve? What's its purpose, or does it commemorate something? Is there any interesting story or folklore connected with that that landmark, and that shares about local history? You can choose to give your students sub-themes that they're to look into to tell the stories of these places. For example, we had one project look at places that related to the promotion of peace. So telling stories of either museums or statues or things in their community that commemorated peace. In the picture you see here, we have students looking at sites in their community that tell strange tales. So something strange and mysterious in their community that they wanted to share about. All right. So with that preparation done, you would come to the video conference with your partners. And there's different ways that you can do the share out. You can have your students create a virtual trip for their partners to sort of do this back and forth sharing. You can use photos, Google Earth, and do a virtual tour of this local landmark. And we've also had students and groups and classes do some sharing of information in advance. So maybe they'll prepare a brochure about that site that they were looking at, and then they'll use that as discussion for the video conference connection. Okay, and some important questions to think about for discussion and engaging the students in that cultural exchange is what did they find interesting about any similarities or differences they've seen between their local landmarks? Um, and another good question is how is the local or national significance of one landmark related to the significance of other landmarks? So is there some sort of theme that they see? And then finally, how can historical landmarks promote increased mutual understanding, intercultural understanding? So especially if you're looking at some of those landmarks that promote peace, or just sharing about the community and what the community values, how can that help promote their intercultural understanding? So those were just a few ideas of types of activities that you can do with a preparation period in class perhaps, but then just for one connection to liven up and energize students and connecting with another classroom. We've been focusing globally here and connecting with a global class, but you could connect with a class in a different city, a different state, within your own country. So there's many rich ways for students to exchange and to learn even inside one country. Okay, just to wrap here, we're going to share a little bit about finding partners in different places that you can look for connecting with classes around the world for a video conference exchange. So there are many networks out there that you may already be a part of that are great places to look for global partners to do this type of fun, engaging cultural exchange activity. You might be already part of a professional learning network or organization or a conference network that has different communities that connect with educators. So one of the examples here is for ISTE, for example, there's the Global Collaboration Network Professional Learning Group. So look in your professional associations, especially if you belong to any international ones. It's a rich place to meet and connect with folks. There's also great tools out there like Skype Mystery. You'll see other groups as well, like Pen Pal Schools or Edmodos, or also connecting with educators through different Twitter chats. And so for different associations and networks for finding global partners, there is a site called the Global Ed Guide. Well, the domain is globaledguide.org, and it's a teacher's guide to global collaboration. And there you can find examples of organizations and global communities that you could join. My organization, IRN, is an example of a global community of teachers that connect and build partnerships together. So that's one that you can join as well. Okay, and if you're looking for more resources on how to do this type of cultural exchange online, we've looked at a couple examples today of perhaps just one video conference connection that you could do. But we have more projects and more resources. I'd encourage you to check us out on us.irn.org to see and learn more about how to find and build global partnerships, different activities that you can do for a cultural exchange project, and tips and guidance for getting started in that sort of exchange. So thank you so much for joining this talk as part of the Emergency Home Learning Summit. And thanks again for joining.